As the final credits rolled on my playthrough of Katana Zero, I sat exhausted both emotionally and physically from the intense combination of cleverly crafted story and some of the most difficult gameplay I've personally experienced in a Switch game to date. But did I enjoy it, and more importantly, is Katana Zero a game worth your time? I'm Paul from SwitchedOn, and it's my pleasure to bring you my review of Katana Zero on the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is no stranger to difficult platform games, from deceptively hard games like Super Mario Bros. U, through to the emerging genre of die and retry style games like Celeste. Katana Zero falls into the latter camp, with death something you'll have to come to terms with very early on. Most levels are designed to be retried multiple times from different approaches, and without spoiling anything of the excellent story, I love the way that dying is cleverly woven into the very fabric of your character, and not just some cheap gameplay mechanic. Armed with just your katana sword, we join the initially anonymous character, completing a short mission which serves as a tutorial to introduce the moves at your disposal. Just as you get comfortable with the slashing, rolling and time-bending mechanics, the pace changes completely, and you find yourself sitting in a therapist's office talking over the motives of your mission. Now again, I really don't want to talk too much about the story, as the various twists and turns introduce themselves along the way and are best kept secret, but having these sections of downtime both in the office and in your own home work really well to break up the hectic action parts of the game. These story scenes don't just help push the narrative along though, as the conversations play out with the characters you come into contact with. You have a limited time to cut them off, maybe to forcibly demand an answer or simply to shut them up. In doing this, you limit the number of responses you are offered in the conversation, and ultimately your curtness may have repercussions in future meetings with that person. It's a clever system which leads to limited divergent story paths, and not one you'd expect in a game such as this. As the story progresses, you find yourself in various buildings and facilities, usually tasked with removing the head of the latest bad guy at the end of the level. To reach them, you'll have to work through various small rooms, killing everyone before you can move on to the next screen. Enemies usually have set patrol paths, and once they have you in their sights, waste no time in attacking you, sometimes leaving you with literally split seconds to react, and a single hit from any enemy, be it bullet or fist, will put you down for good. Dying will almost immediately reset you back to the start of the level to plan out a new approach. What you'll usually find is with each attempt you gain a little more knowledge of how to most efficiently work your way through the bodies, and after a few attempts you will know the perfect plan in your head. Executing that plan flawlessly is then the key to beating each level. This style of gameplay isn't for everyone though. Personally, I usually really dislike this die and retry approach these games take, but as I mentioned earlier, the way the mechanics and the story work together help the dying part to make perfect sense, and also as each level takes anything from 10 to 30 seconds to complete, instantly restarting each time wasn't too much of a frustration. Aside from your sword, you do have some elements at your disposal for besting the baddies. You can pick up objects in the level, from stone ornaments to Molotov cocktails, and usually, if you see one available, it's there for a reason and not just to make the level look pretty. Often, you'll find yourself smashing through a door, taking out the guard idly leaning against it, somersaulting through the air in slow motion whilst throwing a bottle you've picked up at a topless thug at the side of the room, and as you gracefully land in a cat-like crouch, slicing through a machine-gunning maniac that has just run into the room to see what all the commotion is about. Besides your sword and the ability to roll, granting you a precious few frames of invincibility, you also have a limited amount of bullet time, allowing you to slow the action to a snail's pace. Whilst in this state, you will find it easier to use your sword to deflect bullets back from whence they came, taking out anything in their path. Pulling off these move combinations is incredibly satisfying, and many times I was hitting the Switch's video capture functions. When I read reviewers say stuff like, "It makes you feel like a total badass," about some games, I tend to roll my eyes a little bit, but I'm sorry, this game does make you feel like a total badass a lot of the time. Enough about the substance though. A large part of this game is much about the style, and boy is it stylish. From the absolutely stunning pixel graphics and fluid animations of your main character, to the bright neon 1980s inspired lighting and the splashing raindrops of the locales. Every moment in this game is on your screen, it's vibrant and interesting. The action is offset beautifully by a quite sublime soundtrack. Before each level, your character hammers home that 80s vibe by popping a cassette into his Walkman, slipping on some headphones, and the next awesome synth inspired tune starts thumping from your TV. Between levels, this audio quality is kept up with some more softer orchestral offerings that suit the periods of downtime perfectly. I couldn't get enough of the music in this game, and whilst the various slices, explosions and groans of death were nothing particularly special, the music was always fresh and kept your adrenaline levels up too. Katana Zero is a really special Nintendo Switch game, and Justin Stander, the game's main sole developer for over 3 years, should be immensely proud. Any comparisons to Hotline Miami are certainly fair, with the 80s vibe, fast violent action and one-hit kills, but Katana Zero can also stand proudly on its own 2 feet. It's an audio-visual treat, and the story beats are perfectly timed. The dialogue choices you are offered during the story lend themselves to repeated plays, and given the game some longevity, and upon completion there is also something new revealed, which again I won't spoil, but expect a little bit of post-game content once your initial 10 to 12 hours have been completed. Yes, it's a very hard game, but the near instant restarts when you die mean you can usually figure out the puzzle each level presents to you. Some of the boss fights are insanely difficult, well, they were for a player of my limited skill level, but fairly consistent attack patterns do eventually allow you to garner enough muscle memory to pull through. Katana Zero also offers a refreshing change from most modern games, with a lack of any sort of RPG mechanics, upgrades or progression systems. It's just your sword and your skill from start to finish, and that really helps keep things focused on the gameplay and story, instead of diverting your attention to managing skill points and mastering different weapons. You are an expertly trained killer with that sword, and sticking with the weapon for the whole game makes perfect sense. It's very rare to play a game and not come up with any significant downsides. I've spent almost a week since those credits rolled trying to think of any negatives I found, and I'm genuinely coming up blank. Yes, it can be frustrating at times, but most of that was down to my own lack of skill and 43-year-old fingers struggling to keep up. Any frustrations did quickly pass, as the next challenge was never that far away. If I can find any negatives, they would be nitpicking at best, and I wouldn't want to detract from this incredible experience. If it wasn't obvious, I love this game. In my opinion, this is up there with the absolute best indie games the Switch has to offer. And actually scrap that, not just indie games. This is one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch, period. It's an amazingly polished title, and at a great price I'd recommend this to absolutely anyone. Congratulations to Justin and everybody involved in making this game, as I'm awarding Katana Zero, the first ever SwitchedOn, 10 out of 10. Well done guys. Thank you so much for watching that review. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave me a like and comment below, and also please consider subscribing if you don't already. That'd be really great. Until next time though, I will catch you on the next video. See you later. Bye bye.